She was starved by a cruel stepmother, but a lonely rancher with 3 kids gave her a home. Maria was just 8 years old, but the weight of the world already pressed heavily on her small shoulders. After her father passed away, life had taken a harsh turn. Her stepmother, a stern woman with little warmth in her heart, ruled the house like a strict captain on a ship. Every day was a struggle, filled with cold rooms, empty cupboards, and a silence that seemed to swallow her tiny voice. She remembered how her father used to laugh, how he would lift her onto his shoulders and spin her around in the sunlight. Those memories felt like a distant dream now, something soft and fragile that she had to keep carefully tucked inside so that it didn't break. From the moment she woke up in the early morning, Maria's day was filled with chores. She would sweep the floors until her arms ached, wash dishes in cold water that made her fingers stiff, and scrub the walls of the small house until her knees hurt. Her stepmother would watch her with eyes that never smiled. Any small mistake, a dropped plate or a forgotten corner, was met with sharp words or long hours of standing alone in the corner. Maria learned quickly that silence was safer than speaking, and hiding her tears was better than letting them show. Meals were a rare comfort in Maria's life. When her stepmother prepared food, it was barely enough for herself, let alone for Maria. She often went hungry, nibbling on stale bread or dry crackers if she could find them. Some nights she lay awake, listening to the wind outside and imagining what it would be like to have a warm plate of soup or a slice of fresh bread. The pangs of hunger were not just in her stomach, but in her heart too. She longed for a comforting hand, a kind word, a place where she could be safe. Despite all this, Maria was not without hope. She had learned to find small joys wherever she could. She loved walking near the river when the stepmother wasn't watching. The way the sunlight danced on the water made her feel almost free. She liked listening to birds in the trees and pretending they were her friends, singing only for her. She would gather wildflowers and press them carefully in a notebook, creating her own little garden in the pages. In these small moments, Maria felt a spark of happiness that the harshness of the house could not completely extinguish. School was another escape, but it was never easy. Maria didn't have the proper clothes or shoes, and she sometimes went without lunch while other children ate happily. Yet she loved to learn. Numbers, letters, stories. Everything seemed magical to her. She would sit quietly, soaking in every lesson, imagining that one day she could have a life different from the one she had. Her teachers noticed her bright eyes and quiet determination, and though they could not help her much at home, they encouraged her whenever they could. Nights were the hardest. The cold rooms seemed to shrink around her, making it difficult to sleep. She would curl up under thin blankets, trying to ignore the emptiness in her stomach and the loneliness in her heart. Sometimes she would whisper into the darkness, hoping someone, anyone, would hear her, though she knew no one would. The house was silent except for the ticking of an old clock and the occasional creak of the floorboards. She would imagine her father was still there, telling her that everything would be okay, that the world could be bright and full of love. Even in her suffering, Maria had learned resilience. She became careful, observant, and clever. She learned to anticipate her stepmother's moods and avoid drawing attention. She found clever ways to sneak bits of food, hide small treasures she found in the dust, and make her small world a little more bearable. But deep down, she wished for something more than cleverness or survival skills. She wanted love, warmth, and a home where she belonged. She wanted a family that cared for her not because it was their duty, but because they genuinely wanted her to be happy. Sometimes, when she looked out of the small window of her room, she would imagine what it would be like to live somewhere else, perhaps a place with rolling fields, animals, and a garden full of flowers. She dreamed of people smiling at her, offering her food without counting every bite, letting her sit by the fire and read stories without fear. These dreams were fragile and quiet, but they kept her spirit alive. They were the small lanterns that illuminated her dark days. Maria also found comfort in little acts of kindness from strangers, even if they were fleeting. Once a neighbor gave her an extra piece of bread. Another time a teacher lent her a warm coat when winter came. These moments, though brief, reminded her that not all the world was cruel. Somewhere, Out there were people who could care, who could be gentle and patient. These tiny sparks of kindness nourished her hope, even when her stepmother's cruelty tried to snuff it out. Her loneliness was heavy, but it also made her more observant and thoughtful. She noticed the small details, the way sunlight filtered through leaves, the rhythm of birdsong, the patterns of clouds in the sky. She began to keep a small journal, writing down her observations and dreams, almost as if talking to a friend who would never judge her. It became her secret place, a world where she could be free, even for a little while. Despite her suffering, Maria remained kind-hearted. She shared the little food she could find with stray animals in the alley, and spoke softly to them as if they could understand her. Her heart, though wounded, remained open. She did not let cruelty make her cruel. She still believed in goodness, even if she had rarely seen it in her daily life.
Every day, Maria held on to her dream that life could be different.
She imagined a place where laughter replaced fear, where her stomach was full, where bedtime was peaceful instead of lonely. That hope, fragile though it was, became the core of her survival. It whispered to her in the darkest moments, telling her to keep going, to keep imagining, to keep believing that one day something wonderful might come into her life. And so, Maria endured. Each day was a battle, each night a challenge, but she faced them with courage that belied her age. She was small and alone, but inside, a spark of resilience burned brightly. Little did she know that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined, through the kindness of a stranger, the warmth of a home, and the gentle love of a family that would welcome her with open arms. Maria's world was small and harsh, but one cold winter afternoon, something unusual happened. She had decided to wander further than usual, driven by a mix of curiosity and the desire to escape her lonely house, if only for a little while. The sky was pale gray, and a soft snow was falling, coating the ground in a quiet, white blanket. Each step she took crunched under her worn shoes, and her thin coat offered little protection against the biting wind. Yet Maria felt a strange excitement, a feeling she had not known for a long time. Perhaps it was hope whispering to her heart, or perhaps it was just the thrill of seeing something new. As she walked along the outskirts of the town, she noticed a ribbon of smoke curling up into the sky from behind a line of trees. Curious, she followed it. The smoke smelled warm and inviting, carrying the scent of something she had not smelled in years: fresh bread. Her stomach tightened, reminding her that she had eaten nothing since morning. Yet it was not just hunger that drew her closer. It was the sense of life and warmth that the smoke promised, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness of her own home. Soon she came to a clearing, and there it was, a ranch unlike anything she had ever seen. A sturdy wooden house stood proudly in the middle of a field, smoke still rising from the chimney. Around it 3 children ran and played, their laughter echoing through the crisp air. Maria froze, momentarily hidden behind a tree, captivated by the scene. The children were not arguing or crying, nor were they scolding one another for small mistakes. They were simply happy, carefree, and together. One of them stumbled in the snow and fell, but another helped him up immediately, their laughter continuing without interruption. Maria's heart ached at the sight. She longed for a place like that, a place where she could be safe and loved. She watched for hours, carefully hiding behind the trees. She noticed the woman who seemed to be their mother. She moved gracefully, attending to chores with a gentle efficiency that Maria had never seen before. The woman laughed when the children made small mistakes, her voice warm and comforting. She handed one of the children a warm drink and patted another on the head. The sight made Maria's heart ache in a way she could not explain. She realized she had never seen anyone so kind and patient in her life. As she observed, Maria felt something stir inside her that she had almost forgotten: hope. The world, she realized, could be more than cruel and cold. Somewhere out there, people could care. They could laugh together, share meals, and live in harmony. For the first time in many years, Maria dared to imagine a life where she did not have to hide, where she could be herself, and where she could eat without fear. Days passed, and Maria found herself drawn back to the ranch again and again. She would hide in the trees or behind the fences just to watch the warmth and joy that seemed to radiate from the home. Each visit was brief, but each one filled her heart with longing and a faint sense of comfort. She began to learn the rhythms of the ranch, the way the children moved, how the woman organized her day, the way laughter echoed in the courtyard. It became a secret world for her, a safe space she could visit only with her eyes and imagination. One day, as Maria was watching, she slipped on a patch of ice and tumbled down a small slope. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding, only to see one of the children running toward her. "Are you okay?" the child asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. Maria froze, unsure how to respond. She had been careful to remain invisible, and now she was caught in the open, facing someone who might laugh at her or scold her for trespassing. But instead of laughter or anger, the child offered her a hand. "Come on, let me help you," he said kindly. Maria hesitated, then slowly accepted the hand. His touch was gentle, and for the first time in a long time she felt a small spark of trust. She noticed his bright eyes, his open expression, and she realized that not everyone in the world was cruel. Some people could be kind. Some people could be safe. That small act of kindness changed something inside Maria. She began to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she could find safety and warmth in the world, if she dared to step closer. But she was cautious. Years of hardship had taught her to be wary of strangers, and she knew better than to trust too quickly. So she continued to watch from a distance, always curious, always dreaming, yet never fully revealing herself. Winter deepened, and the snow covered the fields in a thick white blanket. Maria noticed that the woman often left food outside for the children when they came in from playing. One day she saw a small loaf of bread left by the door, and hunger gnawed at her more strongly than ever before. She watched, debating with herself, and finally, with trembling hands, she picked up a corner of the loaf when no one was looking. The bread was warm and soft, and as she took a small bite, her eyes filled with tears. It was not just food she tasted, it was kindness. Something she had almost forgotten existed. The woman, Clara, noticed her shortly after. Instead of anger or scolding, Clara called out gently, "Hello there! Are you hungry?" Maria froze, unsure what to do. Her heart pounded, fear and hope battling inside her. She expected harsh words, but none came. Clara's voice was calm and inviting, not demanding. Slowly, Maria nodded. Clara smiled warmly and came closer, carrying a basket of bread. "Come, you can have some. Don't be afraid," she said. Maria felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. No one had ever offered her food so freely, with a smile and kindness. She stepped forward hesitantly, taking the bread in her small hands. Clara knelt down to her level and spoke gently, asking her name and how she was doing. Maria's voice trembled as she answered, but Clara listened patiently, never interrupting or judging. It was a strange, wonderful feeling, to be heard, to be treated with care. Over the following days, Maria returned to the ranch more openly. She helped with small chores, fetching firewood or carrying water, though quietly and carefully. Clara treated her as part of the household, with gentle guidance and warmth. The children were curious and welcoming, and Maria began to feel a sense of belonging that she had never experienced before. She laughed quietly to herself when the children shared stories and jokes, feeling a connection that made her heart swell with joy. As winter slowly began to fade, Maria realized that her visits to the ranch were no longer just a secret escape. They were becoming a lifeline. She looked forward to each visit, to the warmth, the food, the laughter, and the kindness that she had been starved of for so long. She began to understand that sometimes the world could be gentle, that people could care for one another, and that a single act of kindness could change a life. Maria's heart began to heal, little by little. The fear and loneliness that had weighed so heavily on her began to lift, replaced by a cautious but growing hope. She realized that her life could be different, that perhaps there was a place for her in the world where she could be safe, loved, and valued. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream, not just of food or warmth, but of belonging, laughter, and a family who would accept her as she was. The ranch had become a symbol of hope in Maria's life, a place where the darkness of her past seemed to fade, at least for a while. And though she did not yet know what the future held, she felt a small, steady courage growing inside her, a courage that told her she could endure, she could trust, and maybe, one day, she could finally have a home of her own. Maria's visits to the ranch had become the brightest part of her days. She looked forward to seeing Clara, the woman who had offered her warmth and food without judgment, and the 3 children who had become her first friends in years. Each visit brought a sense of normalcy that she had never experienced at home, and slowly she began to feel like she belonged somewhere. One late afternoon, Maria arrived at the ranch just as the sun began to dip behind the trees, casting long golden shadows across the snow. Clara was in the yard feeding the chickens while the children chased each other around the barn, their laughter ringing like bells through the crisp air. Maria hesitated for a moment at the edge of the clearing, unsure if she should approach. She had spent months observing and visiting quietly, but now something inside her told her she could take a small step forward. Clara noticed her immediately. "Maria!" "Come here, dear," she called gently, waving her over. Maria's heart raced. She had never been greeted with such warmth before. Slowly she walked toward Clara, her hands tucked into her sleeves to keep warm. The woman smiled as Maria approached, and the children paused their play to look at her with curiosity.
"I thought you might like a cup of cocoa," Clara said, motioning toward the kitchen door.
"It's warm, and it will help you dry off after being outside in the snow." Maria's eyes widened. She had never had anyone offer her something so simple, yet so comforting, without expecting anything in return. The smell of cocoa and freshly baked bread filled the kitchen, and for the first time in her life, Maria felt completely safe. She took the cup with trembling hands, sipping slowly and savoring the warmth as it spread through her body. It was a small comfort, but to Maria, it felt like a gift from the heavens. Over the next few weeks, Maria began to spend more time inside the house. She helped Clara with small chores, setting the table, folding laundry, and sweeping the floors. Clara spoke to her kindly, teaching her new skills and encouraging her when she did well. The children were equally welcoming, showing her where to find toys, helping her learn games, and sharing small jokes that made her laugh quietly. Maria's laughter, which had been absent for so long, began to return, soft at first and then stronger as she grew more comfortable. One snowy evening, Clara asked Maria to sit with her in the living room by the fire. "Maria," she began softly, "I know things have been very hard for you. You've endured a lot for someone so young, but I want you to know that you are safe here. You are welcome in this house, and I hope you will stay as long as you need." Maria's eyes filled with tears. She had never heard words like these before. Words of genuine care and acceptance. She nodded silently, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. Despite her growing comfort, Maria remained cautious. Years of hardship had taught her that trust could be dangerous. She had learned to hide her feelings, to be careful with her heart, and to protect herself from disappointment. Yet, as she spent more time with Clara and the children, a gentle sense of trust began to blossom. She realized that this woman, with her kind eyes and patient voice, was different from anyone she had ever known. She was someone who could be trusted, someone who could offer a home that was more than just a house. One day Clara took Maria aside while the children were playing outside. "Maria," she said, "I see how brave you are, how strong you've been through so much. I think it's time you tell me about your life. You don't have to, of course, but I want to understand you better." Maria hesitated, her heart racing. She had never shared her story with anyone, not even a friend or a teacher. But Clara's gentle tone and the trust she had built over weeks made her take a deep breath and begin to speak. She told Clara about her father, about how he had loved her and how much she missed him. She spoke about her stepmother, about the cold rooms, the hunger, and the endless chores. She told her about the nights spent alone, the small joys she had found in the world outside, and the little dreams she clung to in secret. As she spoke, Tears rolled down her cheeks, but Clara simply held her hand and listened. There was no interruption, no judgment, just patience and understanding. When Maria finished, Clara pulled her into a gentle hug. "Thank you for telling me," she whispered. "You have been very strong, Maria, and I admire you so much. You do not have to endure anything like that anymore. You are safe here with me and the children." For the first time in her life, Maria felt a sense of relief so deep that it almost took her breath away. The weight of her past seemed a little lighter, and a small spark of hope grew stronger inside her. As the weeks passed, Maria began to feel more at home at the ranch. She played with the children, helping them build snowmen and sled down gentle slopes. She laughed freely, shared stories, and learned new games. Clara taught her how to bake bread, care for the animals, and even read aloud from books that Maria had never had the chance to enjoy before. Each day brought new lessons, new joys, and new reasons to believe that life could be kind. Maria also began to notice changes in herself. Her small body, once weak and thin from hunger, began to grow stronger with proper food and rest. Her hands, once calloused and sore from endless chores, became capable of gentle work. Her mind, once clouded with fear and sadness, became bright and curious. She started to dream of the future, not just survival but happiness, learning, and a place where she could belong. One day, Clara suggested that Maria try helping with a larger task on the ranch, feeding the animals in the barn. Maria was nervous at first, unsure if she could manage, but Clara stood beside her, guiding her step by step. "You can do this, Maria," she said. "I will help you." With Clara's encouragement, Maria completed the task successfully. She felt a rush of pride and accomplishment, something she had rarely experienced. The small victories began to accumulate, and with them, Maria's confidence grew. The children, too, became her family in a way she had never imagined. They accepted her without question, shared their toys and stories, and included her in every game. Maria's laughter became louder, more frequent, and more genuine. She discovered that it was possible to trust, to care, and to be cared for. She realized that love could exist outside of fear, cruelty, or loneliness. It was a new world for her, a world she had longed for without even knowing it. Evenings at the ranch became Maria's favorite time of day. She would sit by the fire, sipping warm cocoa, listening to Clara and the children talk about their day, and feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The warmth of the fire seemed to spread into her heart, melting away the cold and fear that had clung to her for so long. She began to understand that home was not just a building, but a feeling of safety, acceptance, and love. Yet Maria's past still lingered in quiet ways. She would sometimes wake up at night, startled by a shadow or a noise, remembering the fear she had known. But the comfort of Clara's home and the presence of the children helped her calm herself. Slowly, she learned to replace fear with hope and doubt with trust. Each day at the ranch was a lesson in courage, resilience, and the power of kindness. By the end of the season, Maria had transformed in ways that amazed even her. She had gone from a lonely, fearful girl to a bright, hopeful child, capable of laughter, trust, and love. Clara had become a mentor and a guardian, teaching her not only how to survive but how to thrive. The children had become her siblings, showing her the joy of companionship and shared experiences. And most importantly, Maria had discovered that there were people in the world who could care for her, who could offer her a safe place, and who could help her heal from the wounds of her past. Maria's life at the ranch was still a journey, one with challenges and adjustments. But for the first time, she felt she had a future worth looking forward to. She understood that healing was a process, that trust had to be earned, and that kindness could change a life in ways nothing else could. And as she watched the snow falling softly outside the window, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and love, Maria allowed herself to dream boldly for the first time in her life. A dream of a home, a family, and a life where she could be happy, safe, and truly herself. Maria's life at the ranch was slowly becoming a new reality, one she had only dared to imagine in her quietest dreams. The winter snow was beginning to melt, leaving the fields damp but alive with the promise of spring. Each day brought new tasks, new lessons, and new moments of laughter. Maria felt herself changing in ways she could hardly describe. She was no longer the small, frightened girl who had wandered alone through the cold. She was becoming a part of a family, learning what it meant to belong. From the very first morning she officially stayed at the ranch, Clara made sure Maria felt welcome and comfortable. She had set up a small room for her near the children's bedrooms, with a soft bed, warm blankets, and even a few books on the shelf.
It was not a grand room, but it was a place Maria could call her own.
For the first time, she felt safe enough to lie down at night without fear. She could drift into sleep with the sound of laughter from the children and the gentle creaking of the old wooden house around her. The first few weeks were not without challenges. Maria had spent most of her life being careful, hiding her feelings, and following strict rules that often changed from day to day. Learning to trust the rhythm of a loving household took time. Sometimes she would hesitate before speaking, unsure if her words mattered. Other times she would doubt whether kindness could truly last. But Clara's patience never wavered. She encouraged Maria gently, reminding her that she could take her time, that it was okay to be herself, and that the family welcomed her completely. The children were Maria's greatest source of joy and comfort. They were curious and playful, eager to include her in their daily adventures. They taught her games she had never played, showed her the secret spots in the garden where flowers bloomed early, and helped her learn to climb trees and run through fields without fear. Maria laughed more than she had in years, a soft melodic sound that seemed to surprise even herself. Each smile and shared joke built a sense of belonging she had never known. One sunny afternoon, Clara suggested that Maria help her with a larger project on the ranch, planting a small vegetable garden for the summer. Maria's hands trembled as she held the tools, worried she might do something wrong. But Clara knelt beside her, guiding her gently. "It's okay, Maria. Just take your time. We'll do it together," she said. With Clara's encouragement, Maria dug the soil, planted seeds carefully, and watered them with steady hands. By the end of the day, she looked at the small garden and felt a quiet sense of pride. For the first time, she realized she could contribute to something meaningful, something that would grow and flourish under her care. Days turned into weeks, and Maria's confidence grew. She learned to help with household chores, from preparing meals to feeding the animals. Clara taught her how to milk the cows, gather eggs from the chickens, and care for the goats. Maria discovered that working with her hands, tending to the animals, and helping run the ranch gave her a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. Each small task became a step toward independence, a way to show that she was capable, responsible, and valued. One rainy evening, Maria and Clara sat together by the fire, the children asleep upstairs. Clara asked Maria, "How do you feel about staying here with us now?" Maria hesitated, her eyes filling with tears.
I
feel safe," she said softly, "and happy. I never thought I could feel this way." Clara reached out and held her hand. "You deserve to feel safe and happy, Maria. You've been through so much, and I want you to know that you are loved." Those words sank deep into Maria's heart. For the first time, she believed that love could be steady and lasting, not fleeting or conditional. Maria also began to form routines that helped her feel at home. She learned to wake with the sunrise, help Clara with breakfast, and then play or study with the children before the day's chores. She found joy in the simple things, collecting eggs, watering the garden, or curling up with a book by the fireplace. Each day, the rhythm of the ranch gave her a sense of stability she had never known. Life no longer felt like a constant struggle. It felt like a journey she could enjoy, step by step. One afternoon, Clara invited Maria to the kitchen to bake bread together. "Baking can teach you patience," Clara said, smiling. Maria measured the flour carefully, mixed the dough, and shaped the loaves with growing confidence. The smell of fresh bread filled the house, and Maria felt a glow of accomplishment. It was a small act, but it symbolized so much more: growth, skill, and the nurturing warmth of a family. She realized that life could be both joyful and productive, and that she had the right to be part of it. The children often included Maria in their small adventures. They would explore the fields, climb trees, and race along the paths near the barn. Maria learned to trust herself in ways she had never dared to before. When she fell or stumbled, someone would help her up without criticism, without anger. Just care. These experiences, small as they were transformative. They showed Maria that mistakes were part of learning, that imperfection was acceptable, and that kindness could guide her through challenges. Maria's bond with Clara grew stronger every day. Clara was not just a caregiver. She became a teacher, a guide, and a friend. She listened to Maria's worries, shared stories from her own life, and encouraged her to dream. Clara celebrated every small success, praised her efforts, and offered gentle correction when needed. In Clara's presence, Maria learned to trust herself and others. She learned that a family could be built on respect, care, and love, not fear, punishment, or neglect. One evening, Maria and Clara were sitting outside watching the sunset paint the fields in shades of orange and pink. Maria turned to Clara and asked, "Do you think I can really belong here?" Clara smiled warmly.
Maria, you belong here just as you are.
"You've been brave, and you've earned a place in this home. We are glad you are with us." Maria felt tears of gratitude welling up. For the first time, she felt fully accepted, fully safe, and fully loved. The seasons began to change, and with spring came new life on the ranch. Flowers bloomed, animals gave birth, and the air was filled with the sounds of growth and renewal. Maria participated in every step, learning to care for new chicks, planting seedlings, and exploring the fields. She began to dream of a future where she could continue learning, helping, and growing. Her past, once heavy and painful, now felt more distant. It was a memory, yes, but it no longer defined her. She had discovered a life full of warmth, love, and possibilities. Through it all, Maria's transformation was clear to everyone. Her laughter was frequent and genuine, her movements confident, and her heart open. She had learned to trust, to love, and to hope. She understood that home was more than a place. It was a feeling, a sense of safety, belonging, and care. And now, for the first time in her life, Maria felt that she truly had a home. The ranch was no longer just a place to escape the cold. It was a place where Maria could grow, thrive, and heal. She spent her days helping, learning, and playing, while her nights were peaceful, surrounded by warmth and security. Clara's family had become her family, and the bond they shared was strong and unbreakable. The home that had once seemed like a distant dream was now her reality. Maria's journey was still ongoing. There were lessons to learn, challenges to face, and moments when she would doubt herself. But she faced each day with courage, hope, and a sense of purpose. She had discovered that life could be kind, that love could be steady, and that she had the strength to thrive. For the first time, she felt that the future was hers to shape, filled with possibilities, joy, and the enduring warmth of a home that truly cared for her. By the end of Part 4, Maria had not only found safety and food, but she had discovered trust, love, and belonging. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more joyful. The ranch, once a distant dream she only observed, had become her world. A world where she could be herself, learn, grow, and experience the happiness she had longed for all her life. Maria had lived at the ranch for several months now, and the transformation in her life was remarkable. The timid, lonely girl who had once wandered in the snow searching for warmth and hope had grown into a confident, joyful child. Each day was filled with purpose, laughter, and learning, and Maria felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. She woke every morning excited to see what the day would bring, eager to help Clara, play with the children, and explore the fields surrounding the ranch. Clara had become more than a guardian. She was a mentor, a teacher, and a source of unwavering support. She encouraged Maria to discover her talents, explore her interests, and dream beyond the ranch. Maria learned to read more fluently, write stories in her small notebook, and solve problems creatively while helping care for the animals and plants. Each achievement, no matter how small, was celebrated with warmth and encouragement, strengthening Maria's confidence and reminding her that she was capable of great things. The children were now her family in every sense of the word. They shared secrets, adventures, and small triumphs, teaching Maria the joy of friendship and companionship. They built forts in the hayloft, raced through the meadows, and laughed together under the sun. Maria felt a sense of joy so deep it seemed almost foreign after years of loneliness and hardship. She realized that she could trust, could care for others, and could be cared for in return. Each smile, each shared joke, and each comforting hug from Clara or the children strengthened her belief that she truly belonged here.
One day, Clara suggested that Maria try taking on a larger responsibility on the ranch.
"Maria," she said gently, "you've grown so much, and I think you're ready to help manage the animals on your own, with just a little guidance. Are you willing to try?" Maria's heart leapt. She had never been entrusted with such responsibility, and the thought both excited and frightened her. With Clara's patient support, Maria carefully fed the animals, cleaned their stalls, and tended to their needs, learning to trust her own abilities and judgment. By the end of the day, she felt a quiet sense of pride and accomplishment unlike anything she had known before. As weeks turned into months, Maria continued to grow stronger and more self-assured. She became more outgoing, sharing her thoughts and ideas freely with Clara and the children. She helped teach the younger children how to read simple words and numbers, showing patience and kindness she had learned from Clara. Each day she demonstrated resilience, courage, and a growing sense of independence. The ranch had become not only her home but also a place where she could shine and feel valued. Despite the happiness surrounding her, Maria never forgot the hardships she had endured. She often reflected on her past, not with bitterness, but with gratitude that she had survived and found a place where she could heal. The memories of hunger, fear, and loneliness had left scars, but they had also given her empathy, strength, and understanding. Maria realized that she could use her experiences to help others, to be kind, and to teach the children the value of compassion and resilience. One warm spring afternoon, Clara gathered the children and Maria outside. "I think it's time we plant a new garden," she said with a smile. "This one will be bigger, and I want all of you to help." Maria's eyes sparkled. She loved tending to the plants, feeling the soil in her hands, and watching the seeds grow. She remembered the first garden she had planted when she first arrived at the ranch, and she felt proud of how far she had come. Together with Clara and the children, Maria dug, planted, watered, and carefully tended to the new garden. Each sprout that appeared seemed like a symbol of growth, hope, and renewal. Much like Maria's own life, Maria also discovered joy in teaching the children the lessons she had learned. She showed them how to care for the animals gently, how to observe the changing seasons, and how to appreciate the little things in life. She shared stories from her childhood, not the painful parts, but the moments she had learned from, the lessons that helped her survive. The children listened attentively, and in their laughter and curiosity, Maria found a new sense of purpose. She realized that helping others and sharing knowledge could bring as much happiness as receiving kindness herself. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, Maria sat with Clara by the fireplace. She reflected on her journey, the darkness of her early life, the cold, lonely nights, and the hunger she had endured. And then she thought of the warmth she had found at the ranch, the laughter of the children, and the care Clara had shown her. Her heart swelled with gratitude. "I never thought I could feel this happy," she said softly to Clara. "I didn't think a home like this existed for me." Clara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Maria's face. "It always existed, Maria. You just had to find it, and you have." As time went on, Maria's sense of self grew stronger. She learned to trust her own judgment, make small decisions, and take care of both herself and others. She became more resilient, finding joy even in small challenges. When the animals were sick, she helped nurse them back to health. When the garden needed care, she worked diligently and patiently. Each responsibility, each task, and each act of kindness became a step in her journey of growth, shaping her into a capable and caring young person. Maria also began to dream about the future. She imagined learning more about animals, perhaps helping on the ranch permanently, and one day helping other children who had faced hardships like hers. She felt a deep desire to give back, to make a difference, and to ensure that no child would feel as alone as she had once felt. The spark of hope that had first appeared when she saw the ranch from afar had grown into a steady flame, illuminating the path ahead. The seasons continued to change, and Maria experienced the full rhythm of life at the ranch. She witnessed the first blooms of spring, the warmth of summer, the harvest of autumn, and the quiet beauty of winter snow. Each season brought new experiences, new lessons, and new joys. Maria learned to embrace change, to appreciate life's small miracles, and to find beauty in every moment. The ranch had become more than a home. It had become a place of learning, healing, and growth. One day a traveling teacher came to the town near the ranch. Maria eagerly attended the lessons, soaking up knowledge and discovering a love for learning that had been dormant for years. She excelled in reading, writing, and problem-solving, and Clara encouraged her to pursue her interest fully. Maria realized that education was not just about school. It was about discovering her own potential and preparing for a future she had never dared to imagine. The bond between Maria and Clara deepened over time. Clara had become a steady presence in Maria's life, a person she could turn to for guidance, comfort, and encouragement. They shared long talks by the fire, laughter in the kitchen, and quiet moments under the stars. Clara helped Maria understand that love and care could be consistent, that a family could be built on respect and kindness, and that a child could flourish when given support and patience. Maria cherished these moments, feeling safe and loved in ways she had never known. Maria's past hardships were never forgotten, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they became lessons, shaping her into a compassionate, strong, and empathetic young person. She began to help other children in the area, showing them kindness and care, teaching them lessons about resilience, trust, and hope. She understood that her experiences had given her the ability to connect with others and make a positive difference. One bright summer day, Maria stood at the edge of the fields looking out over the ranch that had become her home. The sun was warm on her face. The wind carried the scent of flowers and fresh hay, and the children's laughter echoed through the air. She felt a sense of peace and happiness she had never known. She realized that the loneliness, fear, and hardship of her past had led her to this place of love and belonging, and for that, she was profoundly grateful. As the years passed, Maria continued to grow, learn, and thrive. She became an integral part of the ranch, helping Clara care for the animals, tend the gardens, and maintain the home. She remained close to the children, who had become lifelong friends and siblings in every sense of the word, and through it all she carried the lessons of kindness, resilience, and hope, sharing them with everyone she met. Maria had finally found a home, a family, and a sense of purpose that she had longed for all her life. The dark days of hunger, fear, and loneliness were now memories, replaced by laughter, warmth, and love. She had learned that no matter how difficult life might seem, kindness could change everything, hope could endure, and love could heal even the deepest wounds. And so Maria's story became one of triumph, healing, and joy. She had survived the hardships of her early life, found a safe and loving home, and blossomed into a strong, compassionate young person. Her journey was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of trust, and the enduring impact of kindness. She had found not just a house, but a home, a place where she could be safe, loved, and truly herself. Maria's life at the ranch was no longer just a dream. It was a beautiful, living reality. She had learned that happiness could exist, that people could care for one another, and that even the smallest acts of kindness could change a life forever. And as she stood in the golden light of the setting sun, surrounded by the people and the home she loved, Maria knew with certainty that she had finally found the life she had always dreamed of, and that her story of hope and resilience would continue to inspire her and others for years to come.